Good evening, Fireside. How is everybody today? This evening it is 7:40. Welcome to your 15 minutes of safety here at the Crash Test Dummy, talking to you from very cold, very blustery, just somewhere outside of, I don't know, Ottawa, Ontario. Let's turn some lights on in here. There's one light. 1 second, there's another light. So, please excuse me taking so long to get up to speed here. There we go, everybody. Sorry about that. Terribly sorry. I am just actually getting in just a few minutes ago, just getting my warm tea right now after shoveling. Being just south of Ottawa, we just got a great big huge storm coming in, so the Crash Test Dummy was being the Crash Test Shoveler. So what we're trying to do right this week, every week at 7:40 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Mondays, we were talking about our 15 minutes of safety. At the Crash Test Dummy, we have talked about such things as keeping your lid on, make sure you're wearing a hard hat. But lately, we've been talking an awful lot about safety in movies, because that's an awful lot more interesting than what we do talk about, which is safety, which can be kind of boring. So my quote this week started out with the big deal of, it's a little weird, but I'll go with it. Now, where did that quote come from? That feels weird. That came from, of course, Spider-Man Far From Home. Doctor Strange reacting to being called Steven by Spider-Man. What is going on? There's a whole long conversation about that. Please me, I'm not a huge Spider-Man fan, but I did enjoy that movie, and it was quite interesting. Where it says that feels weird. I was actually going to follow along with that particular feeling from last week, where I was talking about the movie Ready Player One, about being human, and how they were suspended in the back of basically a cargo van or a great big huge military type of vehicle, and they're suspended in the VR, in the harnesses playing the VR world. So I thought extend that into the harness world and safety. And so I thought, okay, well, what can we talk about that is in the harness world? So I thought Spider-Man, of course, they're always flying all over the place. There'd be an awful lot of harnesses in the movie world. So what would they use in the harnesses? So I thought, okay, I'm going to type that into the Google, Dr. Google, and say, hey, what do you have to say today about safety? So I Googled simple stuff, safety in movies, safety and everything else. The first few thing that came up with stunt safety rules, believe it or not, bring it up right now, is cheerleading safety tips. So when you want to start jumping on board or trying to find out about safety in movies or anything else like that, or stunts in safety, or how you have to do to be safe in movies or safety doing any stunts whatsoever, goes right to cheerleading. Now, reading more about that, I found out that it is the wrong way to say it, Kurt. It is not. Cheerleading is cheer dance. It's actually quite dangerous. And actually, there are rules, serious rules. It says no more than 4 throwers should be involved in the toss. And one of the throwers must be behind the flyer. So the flyer must not have her head fall below horizontal during the toss. So incredible rules about safety for cheer dance, which is amazing. It's an absolutely incredible thing. I was going to go with that. And then all of a sudden, I came across the other things. What does go on in safety that's bad? So, coming in, wearing my toque, because I'm Canadian, it's a toque, everyone. Near Ottawa, what was the news in Ottawa in safety world? Cheer dance is quite exciting. What actually does happen, I'm going to have to read about it right now. Please excuse me for everyone for a couple of minutes, because I do have to pay attention to what happened in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. And an explosion happened on Merivale Road, just down the road from where I used to work, actually near the airport. I've actually been into an awful lot of these facilities. I actually spend most of my days walking through facilities with the workers, with the safety people, with the actual distributors that sell to them. A lot of people just trying to tell them how maybe they could look twice or stay safe at work. And unfortunately, this particular incident, there were 4 people currently that are dead from this explosion. So there are human remains of this explosion off Merivale Road. 5 were injured for sure, critically. 4 have been identified as being victims of this Merivale explosion. It's just a safety incident. And when I said, that feels weird, when I was talking about Doctor Strange, I thought, okay, it's fun to talk about cheer dance, cheerleading, and all that type of idea, and the Ready Player One syndrome. That's what I talk about so much in safety, in the VR world, in the fun world, in that there are still people that are working every day to fuel the vehicles that drive your iPods to you, that drive your iPod, boy, I'm old, drive your phones to you, drive everything else to you, your deliveries, your Amazon deliveries, all of these things get delivered to you. You have to realize that people sometimes get stuck in working in these environments, and they actually do get hurt. So when I say we should actually talk about that feels weird, we should talk about bringing up the culture of safety. Talking to the supervisors, talking to the managers, saying instead of talking to Doctor Strange and saying we've saved the world together, maybe we should call something else. Well, maybe we should talk about calling out the supervisor, calling out another worker, calling out somebody else that says, Perhaps we should look at this. This isn't quite safe. That feels weird. To say to your manager, I don't want to do this. I grew up in a culture where I knew I was doing something wrong and I should not be working alone in the environment I was working in. It was very dangerous, but I grew up in an environment where you keep your job or you go find yourself flipping burgers. Now, that's not a horrible job. It really isn't. It's dangerous. Yeah, there's an awful lot of dangerous things, but they threaten to take you from a fairly secure, well-paid job to another job saying, hey, go flip burgers. And I'm thinking, well, that's a real risk. So perhaps these people that were working in this supposedly safe environment, working on the electrical, working as a welder, working in these safe environments that are well-paid, well-skilled jobs, one of them said to their boss saying, hey, I don't know if we should be cutting through this, or I don't know if we should be doing that. I don't know what happened, but there have been incidents before in Ottawa where people have died because people have cut into materials they shouldn't have cut into before. There was a student that was actually killed just outside of Ottawa in a class for welding. So I don't know what happened. I just do know that this facility is called Eastway Tank, and there was an explosion. So that's only going to be doing an awful lot of assumptions, reading off an awful lot of articles right here on CBC News, CTV News, Global News. Basically, all the news stories out of Ottawa is where I'm quoting some of this ideas from. So the remains of 4 people were found, and so I'm just saying that feels weird. Taking my 15 minutes of safety to say it's okay to ask or talk to your manager saying that feels weird. Let's just promote the culture of safety. So, back to the fun stuff. Okay, Doctor Strange, Spiderman, that feels weird. What are you going to do when you're in a safety harness? Did you know they actually are rules, what you have to do? Safety tips for cheerleading. For teens, there's actually something called STUNT, stuntthesport.org. Please remember this, everybody. It's called Stunt Safety and Risk Management. I would definitely look into that for anybody who could be listening to. Stuntthesport.org. I just found it, and kidshealth.org is another great one to look at. However, what I do like to look at were some of the resources I've gotten from an awful lot, and I'm going to start pushing a little bit now, is our own Canadian Labour government. Government.on, what is it? Labour.gov.on.ca. I say the .on.ca so many times I forget how it works, but really, it is the Ministry of Labour Training and Skills Development, specifically guideline number 5, Stunt Plan Safety Guidelines for the Film and Television Industry in Ontario. I love this particular area because where I do an awful lot of my time up in Northern Ontario, where all the mines are, the Rock in North Bay. There's a lot of movies being shot in North Bay and Sudbury. Who was it? Emma Roberts was actually up near Sudbury filming a movie a couple summers ago. There's an awful lot of movies being shot up at the Rock. There's been an awful lot of movies going on there. Because the terrain's great, they have an awful lot of focus on supporting the industry, and they get quite useful. A lot of people like to film up there, so I want to at least promote guideline number 5, Stunt Plan, Safety Guidelines for the Film and Television Industry in Ontario. There's an awful lot of prevention, a lot of great things to look at. So everybody just check that site out if you're interested. Just checking out my time right now. We are at 7:48. I've talked for 8 minutes and haven't even talked about what I wanted to talk to, which is stay in your seat, Kurt. This is not you talking to anybody at work. This is you actually trying to talk and stay in one place for more than 30 seconds. So what else do we do at Crash Test Dummy? We've talked about what's in the box. What we do like to talk about is the good and the bad. We like to talk about hand injuries. We like to talk about head injuries, foot injuries, staying safe at work. But really like to tie this into how we're going to stay safe at work in the movie industry because it's a lot more fun. What would have happened if Brad Pitt hadn't cut himself in the movie Seven? What would they have done in the movie Ready Player One if the actual person in charge of safety had not thought of a way to hook up some harnesses so that all the actors, the professionals, could have actually stayed in place long enough to be filmed by the directors, by the filmographers, by everybody else, stayed in place safely? What would they have done? So they always coordinate something. These stunt professionals are amazing at what they do, and they also work with health and safety professionals. They all have safety kits. They all have safety ideas. There's always car chases. There's always big explosions. This happens in real life. You have to realize CGA is a fairly recent idea. It's a fairly new, common idea. But you have to think about what was going on in the real world. Excuse me, someone's talking to me here. In the real world, there are still real actors. It's very difficult to capture that emotion. People understand that. So actors, time and time again, Tom Cruise being one of them, Brad Pitt, there's a tremendous amount of actors that put themselves at risk and seriously get injured. Charlize Theron was talking about how badly she was injured one day when she was on Oprah Winfrey, like serious wrist injuries. I've talked about Uma Thurman and her neck injuries. Actors get hurt because they're young, they're not quite too sure of themselves, and they might be bullying a little bit in their own workplace into doing something they may not feel safe doing. Which brings me right back again to the beginning of, it feels weird, but okay. That feels weird is basically the basic premise of what I'm like to be saying right now. Excuse me. What I'd like to say right now is ensure that when you're talking to anybody within your work environment, that you have a culture of safety. It's okay to question and say, is that safe? And I don't mean question to get in the way or question to bully or question to intimidate or just to get your own way because you may not know the answer. That's another reason to think about this. Maybe the person you're questioning doesn't know the answer and they don't want to look that way. There's nothing wrong with not knowing the answer. Time and time again, I've said, I don't know, but I know who might know the answer. And if I don't know then, I can look that up for you. There's nothing wrong with saying you don't know because it's an awful lot safer than saying, this might work. Might work doesn't help because there's an awful lot of people right now that are mourning some of the people that got hurt. So try and stay safe at work. And that's what we're trying to do is promote a culture of safety. If you see something that's wrong, it's okay. If you're on a movie set and you're talking about something that happens at work, maybe that person shouldn't be rigged up that way. Perhaps that glass in that window shouldn't be broken that way. Perhaps there's another way that we can actually rig this person so they can actually operate safely. Use some sort of lever, cantilever, some type of idea to keep people from getting hurt at work. And that's what we're talking about here is where. Where are we going? What are we doing? How are we staying safe at work? That feels weird is an awfully fun thing to say when you don't have to worry about your own well-being. So you really have to put yourself in other people's position. Why do you have a fall harness? You have a fall harness so that you don't fall and hurt yourself. But really, a fall is really only as far as your head until it hits the ground. If you're 6 feet tall, your head's going to hit the ground, but it's going to be 6 feet later. These are things to think about. So a safety harness, you think is something really cool in Ready Player One, where they're swinging around, you have your VR goggles, and you're moving around. But in reality, that is someone who's actually on the roof, roofing your house, who could fall. So they want to make sure that doesn't happen. In another movie set, that is someone doing the rigging, trying to make sure that the stunt coordinator doesn't fall. Or even perhaps it's someone putting down some sort of pillow down at the bottom so the stunt coordinator and the actual actors can actually fall safely. Those are things you have to think about in a harness. It's not just Peter Pan flying, or it's not just incredible stunt actions go on through the Matrix with incredible movements that they have. Those are stunt coordinators who are actually well trained and know how to use the harnesses effectively and safely. And that's kind of the fun part. And we want to make sure that in this industry, the safety industry, in the Hollywood special effects industry, people ensure they have a culture of safety. It's okay to ask the questions. That feels weird, but I'll go with it. That feels weird, but it's okay. Doctor Strange, Peter Parker, it's okay to call each other by their first names, as long as you understand that safety is safety. So what we're coming up to right now is the end of my 15 minutes. Yes, we are at 13 minutes of the crash test dummy. I try to make sure that every Monday night, about 7:40, I try to make sure we do our 15 minutes of safety taken after my 15 minutes of what is required for safety eye wash. And that's about all I can last people can listen to is 15 minutes of my jibber jabber, trying to make sure people stay safe at work. So I am the crash test dummy. I'm trying to stay safe at work. I'm trying to show off my toque. I'm Canadian, so I have to go with toque. Sorry. And promoting my hometown at PTBO, Peterborough, Canada. An awful lot of music, an awful lot of sports, an awful lot of hockey, an awful lot of stuff going on there. But for right now, everybody, I am the Crash Test Dummy. I really appreciate your time. Everybody, you take care and have fun. Stay safe.